Ladies and gentlemen, former teammate of mine, former all Big Ten performer, former first-round draft pick, and now a member of our Congress. Is that accurate, Nick?
Yeah, it is.
From the state of Ohio, Mr. Anthony Gonzalez. Anthony!
What's going on? How are you?
Hey, I'm great, man. How are you? What are you? You're over there in Washington, D.C. right now, shaking hands, kissing babies. What's going on over there?
I am happily in Ohio right now, running around the district, seeing folks and catching up on everything back home. So it's a good week.
Okay, so when I was teammates with you, I think everybody would say this guy has his stuff together more than everybody else. You got your MBA from Stanford after leaving the NFL. While you were in the NFL, you were always thinking deeper. You're always a smart brain in the locker room and for the NFL. Now you've taken your talents into the House of Representatives. And yesterday you made some news because you are looking to push through the Fair Pay to Play Act, basically double downing on Governor Newsom's move in California for NCAA athletes to make money away from the field. How did this all come to be? And I think you're the absolute perfect human to make this happen if anybody in the history of government was going to be able to make it happen.
Well, first off, thank you for that. My kind of perspective on this is I think you have to start with the question, number one, do you believe that college athletes should be able to capitalize on name, image, and likeness? And I am a firm yes on that, and I have been for a long time, not just for college football and basketball, but college swimming and field hockey. There's ways that folks can leverage their name to just get a couple dollars for spending money. I mean, you were a college athlete.
Yep.
It's not like you have a lot of money running around. So I'm a yes on that. And then I think the second question is, how do you do it? And that's maybe more important or as important. And I think what California got right is the general principle. What they got wrong is, one, it's a state law, and so you don't want a system where you have athletes saying, well, I'll just play in California, not because I want to be there or not because I like the school, but because I can do this. So I think you need a national standard, which is what I'm trying to put in place. And again, I think you do need some guardrails, and to be determined on what that looks like. I'm working with my current athletic director, Gene Smith, on what that would look like, as well as some other folks, because I think you could see where this would get abused quickly, and I think you want to make sure that doesn't happen as well.
So Mark Emmert is the guy that's ultimately going to be a focal point of all these discussions. How do you think the NCAA is going to react to this situation, and have you taken that into account, or right now are you just trying to be active so we can keep it in the public eye so there's a chance we can move forward with legislation? Or how far along in the process are you in this whole thing?
So my goal is to find a piece of legislation that gets broad-based support that would include, hopefully, the NCAA, because the reality is with the California law, that will become law of the land in 2023, I think it is, and so they have to react in some way. But again, I think the goal should be to find something that has broad support. I do not believe the goal should be, screw the NCAA, let's put them out of business, let's get rid of that. I do not think that's what the right goal here. I think the right goal should be, how do we provide a benefit to the players that I think they deserve in a way that preserves a lot of the existing structure? Because I do think that college sports and college athletics is an incredibly valuable thing for the athlete. It was one of the best experiences of my life. But again, I also think that there is a way to allow athletes to make a little bit of money for themselves while they're doing great work for the university. And so that's kind of the goal that I have, and I'm working with the different constituencies to try to find that happy medium, if you will, that kind of gives everybody enough of what they want. And in terms of where we are in the process, we are still early in that process. We're waiting for Gene Smith, who's the Ohio State Athletic Director. He's working on a proposal that he's going to put forward, and then we're going to kind of compare notes and go from there.
So it's just so interesting because I think everybody who has ever played in a sport that has made money and saw, for instance, I was at West Virginia. I watched Pat White, Steve Slayton completely flip around West Virginia University. Whenever I was there at the beginning, our freshman year had 0 bowl wins. The university reflected that. And then after we start winning some games, we get the entire university gets flipped. There's new buildings being built. There's new infrastructure coming to Morgantown. The stadium gets flipped over. People are making millions and millions of dollars all around Pat White and Steve Slayton, who ultimately never got to the massive paydays in the NFL. So that's why I've always been a huge advocate for this potential opportunity for players to make money just in a little bit. I mean, there is a lot of cash to go around. I think the players should see it. The old heads will always say, though, free education's enough. How are you going to pay people? How are you going to do this? This image and likeness thing is an interesting thing because it's not the school having to deal with it who say that they never make any money, even though they build $500 million buildings to say that they're not a profit school and all this stuff. That's okay with me. And I understand the stats say that most athletic organizations don't make cash. But the image and likeness thing is an interesting way around that because it's like, hey, if their names can make money, they should be allowed to do that. Now, I read Pro Football Talk. Mike Florio wrote about this morning. He said, how do they think they're going to be able to contain or handle the no-show appearances and they're just getting paid by big-time boosters? Have you thought about that, the naysayers to this potential setup? There's always going to be haters and people that want to drag it down, especially in a system that has worked for a long time and made a lot of money for people. Any change is going to be met with a little bit of confrontation. Have you thought about the how you're going to regulate the off-the-field money and how it isn't just going to turn into a big boosters just paying kids to do nothing, really?
Yeah, so that's where I think what I keep saying is, look, the goal shouldn't be to get something done quickly. The goal should be to get it right, and that's why I'm trying to take my time and be a little bit more thoughtful and wait for the proposals that are going to come out. And like I said, Gene Smith at Ohio State is working on this right now. I trust Gene. I know Gene. I love Gene as a friend, but also just as somebody who's been working in this industry for a long time. And so I trust that will be thoughtfully prescribed because you're right, and that's why I said there need to be appropriate guardrails to make sure it doesn't get abused. But I always go back to the fundamental question, which is, do you believe that an individual should be able to capitalize on their own name, image, and likeness, not somebody else's, their own? You know, Pat White was born Pat White, and when he was at West Virginia, should he have been able to go to a pizza shop and sign autographs or something like that? I would argue the answer is yes. And so how do you go from where we are today to that world and do so in a way that doesn't undermine the entire system? Because, I do not think that would be the right outcome for college athletics. And so that's what we're considering, and that's the balance we're trying to strike. Admittedly, it is very difficult, but I think if we're thoughtful and we're talking to all the right people and we're weighing these concerns, I do think we can get this right.
Okay, I have an interesting question because the thought of capitalism seems to be a little bit more of a thing that leans right in the Republican world, which is what you are proposing here with the image and likeness. But it took a Democratic governor to really push this type of thing through because of the thought of being treated fairly. This is the both sides of the aisle here working together, which is not normal in Washington, D.C. Is this something that you think your younger brand of politics is going to be able to do moving forward?
So I think this is one of those issues that appeals to people on a couple different grounds on both sides of the aisle, and that gives it a chance, right? So you're right. On the conservative side, on the more Republican side, we see something like this, I think, and I'll speak for myself, I'm not speaking for the whole party, and you say, wow, that doesn't make sense. Why wouldn't you be able to do that? That seems like a logical thing there. And so you garner support there for sure. And then there's also what you see on the Democrat side a lot of is, hey, look, we're talking about folks from really difficult backgrounds, often minorities, who are being denied this opportunity to capitalize on their own name, image, and likeness. That does not feel fair. And so, how do we move forward? And so I think you're going to see, I hope what you'll see is some bipartisan commentary on that and collaboration. And that, again, that's what I'm working on. So, like, constructing a bill is one thing, and that is difficult. But then building the coalitions around it is really where the current job I have gets very challenging. And so that's kind of what we're putting in place from a plan of action and how we're going to ultimately try to bring this to the market.
Gonzo, when I say this, I mean this. I've always said that if we could take a piece of the NFL locker room and move it to society, the world would be a better place. You are a Cuban American in the locker room. There's people from Compton. There's people from the most uppity parts of America. Everybody's coming together for the same goal. Washington, D.C., for far too long has just been, as an outsider's perspective, as a place that we're on this side, you're on that side, we're not going to work together. The fact that you're already moving with some legislation in an attempt to bring people together, I think is a beautiful thing, and I can't wait to see you be president one day, Mr. Gonzo.
I think my wife would kill me, but yeah. No, but I really appreciate what you said there on the locker room, because I think that's underrated. I completely agree. I think one of the most healthy environments I've ever been in my life is an NFL locker room, for exactly what you said. People come from literally everywhere in this country, and you love each other, you work together, you work your butt off, and you chase really fun, exciting goals together. We need to get back to that as a country. We could use that in society broadly today. I agree with you 100%.
Oh, man. Hey, I don't live in Ohio, so I can't vote for you. But if I did, I would, and I'm very thankful for you, Gonzo. You have an incredibly busy schedule. You sent me your daily schedule over. Good luck. I think it's only going to get worse whenever this legislation for Fair Pay-to-Play Act happens. You're the right guy to do it. I hope we can see it happen. And myself and all the other athletes that have ever got a chance to meet you and watch you, very proud of you, and good luck with everything, man.
Thanks, brother. Good being with you.
Hey, cheers, man.